Hello, sports fans. I'm Matt Digby, joined by Samantha Cassano. Our football season recaps continue with a look at West Virginia High School. It was a very unique season, the last two seasons, really, when you go back to how COVID affected the 2020 season. But the fact that, first and foremost, 2021 was a little bit closer to normal. It was great for fans. It was great for players. It was great for us, the chance that we had a chance to interact with some crowds and see some high school football that was a little bit closer to normal compared to 2020.
Yeah, I remember last year, there were only family and maybe select friends being allowed to be in the stands. And this time there was actual crowds. We were actually allowed to have fans of the week. And you see that excitement in the fans who haven't been able to see football in their high schools for a couple of years now.
And that success was able to continue for many area teams. They were able to feed off the energy of those crowds. And we had 13 area teams qualify for the postseason. 3 teams from Class AAA, 5 teams each from AA and Single A, and some schools ending long playoff droughts. Woodrow Wilson reaching the postseason for the first time since 2014. Meadowbridge reaching the postseason for the first time since 2015. So a lot of schools that were able to have success. And when you look at it, 48 total teams make the playoffs at the end of the regular season. The fact that more than a quarter of them were from Southern West Virginia, we haven't had that number in a very long time. We haven't had that number since I've been here, but that's indicative of a very successful season.
Yeah, Southern West Virginia is where some of the best football is played, and we saw that in a lot of these teams. We saw our first team go to the Super Six for the first time in school history.
Yeah, that team is Independence. We'll mention that in just a couple minutes. But first off, we do want to give a shout out to the other 3 area teams that reached the quarterfinals. James Monroe, they had a home win over Trinity. They had a tough loss in the quarterfinals at Doddridge County, but they did play very well. It was only a 14-0 game. It was only just a couple breaks in the fourth quarter that gave the Bulldogs that win. Mount View winning their home game at Vic Nystrom Stadium in the first round against Sherman. They would lose in the quarterfinals at Ritchie County. And then Bluefield, they had a unique situation where they basically needed to forfeit a game in the regular season to become eligible for the postseason. But once they got in, they had to win at Point Pleasant. They won at North Marion, and that set up an epic battle with Independence on Black Friday, where the winner of that game would go to the Super Six, and it turned out to be a classic.
Yeah, and Bluefield was up in that game, and Independence was down going into the second half, and Independence was able to pull out the win.
Yeah, Independence coming from behind a 20-7 halftime deficit, turning into a 34-20 win. And as Samantha mentioned, the Patriots going to the Super Six for the first time in school history. They would face Fairmont Senior, and it was a very back and forth game. A lot of breaks that ultimately went the way of Fairmont Senior. The Polar Bears do get the 21-12 win, but that doesn't take away from the specialness of the Patriots season, going unbeaten in the regular season, making it all the way to Wheeling, and the play of Atticus Goodson, our 2021 and now 2-time WOAY Player of the Year.
And it's so important to have a star player who's able to lead you to victory, but he's not the only person on that team. You have Atticus Goodson, you have Cyrus Goodson, you have Logan Phelan, you have Judah Price, Trey Bowers. The list goes on, and that team is so special, and it's so special to watch.
And a couple of those players you mentioned, they will be back for 2022. Cyrus Goodson, he is not a senior. Trey Bowers, not a senior. Judah Price, we assume, will be back in 2022 to play football. But what does this mean for high school football in Southern West Virginia in general to have 13 teams? Again, more than a quarter of the available playoff spots across the state, across all 3 classes, they go to teams from our area. And it was a good split between AAA, AA, and Single A.
Yeah, it's a good mix of them, and also there were, like you said earlier, there were some teams that were able to pull out long droughts. I know both of us traveled to Meadowbridge earlier in the season to talk to Connor Mullins, who was one of our athletes of the week, and what they have going for them, they had a few years where they could have made the playoffs and just, things didn't go their way, and they ended up being able to crack that barrier this year.
They had a couple key late season wins late in the regular season that guaranteed that first playoff berth since Dwayne Reichard became head coach following the retirement of Larry McClintock. But a lot to look forward to in 2022 for high school football as we reflect on a successful 2021 season. Well, that'll do it for sports. We'll be right back.